Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. The atmosphere in Eastern Europe is tense and heavy with uncertainty as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky delivers one of his most uncompromising warnings to date: no land for peace. This comes right before a scheduled meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, a moment that has the potential to either open a narrow path to de-escalation or deepen the crisis into something far more dangerous. From the streets of Kiev to the borderlines of Donetsk and Luhansk, the sense of anticipation is mixed with anxiety. Soldiers brace themselves for any shift in orders, while civilians go about their lives under the constant shadow of possible escalation. International observers and media outlets are glued to developments, aware that this standoff could reshape global political alignments for years to come. The situation's exterior is defined by visible scars of war. Damaged bridges, crumbled apartment blocks, and fortified checkpoints standing as reminders that this is not a distant conflict, but a daily reality for millions. Inside Ukraine, the political climate is both determined and strained. Zelensky, who began his presidency with promises of reform and peace, has been transformed into a wartime leader whose every move is calculated for both domestic morale and international influence. His administration works around the clock, making rapid decisions under pressure, coordinating with allies, and addressing the needs of both the military and the civilian population. Meetings are brief but intense, as the urgency of war leaves no room for drawn-out debates. Every policy decision is scrutinized for its potential impact on Ukraine's standing and resilience. While there are voices that suggest compromise might bring temporary relief, the prevailing sentiment is that any concession of territory would only invite further aggression, a risk the government is unwilling to take. Zelensky's performance on the global stage has been relentless and strategic. He has addressed parliaments across Europe and North America, spoken directly to global leaders, and leveraged international media to keep Ukraine's plight in the spotlight. His speeches, often emotional yet clear, have drawn comparisons to historical figures who rallied their nations during existential threats. This is not just a matter of political posturing. Every appearance serves to secure more aid, more weapons, and more diplomatic backing. On the other side, Putin enters the anticipated meeting with his own carefully crafted image of strength and control. His public statements are calculated, often laced with historical references and challenges to Western narratives. The two leaders embody opposing visions, one defending national sovereignty and democratic choice, the other pursuing strategic dominance and influence over a former Soviet state. The safety features in this volatile situation are fragile at best. While official diplomatic channels remain open, they are burdened by deep mistrust. Neutral states and international organizations, including the United Nations, attempt to facilitate dialogue and prevent any sudden military escalation. Agreements for localized ceasefires or humanitarian corridors are proposed, but they are often broken or never fully implemented. Both Ukrainian and Russian forces remain on high alert, knowing that even a single misinterpreted action could ignite a larger confrontation. In this environment, restraint is a scarce resource, and miscalculations could lead to devastating consequences for both sides and beyond. The balance depends on disciplined communication and the willingness of leaders to hold back from irreversible decisions. The unique selling points of Zelensky's "no land for peace" stance lie in its moral clarity and its resonance with both Ukrainian citizens and international supporters. It draws a clear line: aggression cannot be rewarded with territorial gains. This message goes beyond Ukraine's borders, reinforcing the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity enshrined in international law. For Ukrainians who have endured bombings, displacement, and the loss of loved ones, this position affirms that their sacrifices are not in vain. On the world stage, it strengthens Ukraine's image as a nation standing firm against a much larger aggressor, inspiring sympathy and support from those who see parallels to their own histories of resistance. However, this position comes with a heavy price. Prolonging the fight means continued human loss, economic devastation, and the psychological strain of living under constant threat. Ukraine's infrastructure has already suffered billions of dollars in damage, with key industries disrupted and millions displaced internally and abroad. The country relies heavily on international aid to sustain its military and stabilize its economy, creating a dependency that could become difficult to manage over time. For Ukraine's allies, supporting this stance requires political will, financial commitment, and the readiness to absorb the consequences of standing against Russia, consequences that could include economic retaliation, cyber attacks, or increased global instability. As the date of the meeting approaches, the stakes grow higher. Diplomatic strategies are sharpened, intelligence agencies monitor every signal, and military commands prepare for all scenarios. The possibility of a breakthrough is slim, given the deep-rooted differences in each side's objectives. For Zelensky, entering this meeting without the intention of conceding land is both a political and moral choice, one that reflects his understanding of how any concession might be perceived, as a victory for aggression and a signal to other authoritarian regimes that force can overwrite international norms. For Putin, the challenge is to extract concessions without appearing to retreat from his own stated goals, while maintaining domestic and strategic credibility. The world's reaction to these developments has been a mix of solidarity, cautious optimism, and deep concern. In Western capitals, officials debate the limits of military and financial support, wary of the risk of direct confrontation with Russia. In other parts of the world, nations watch closely, calculating how the outcome might affect their own security and alliances. The conflict has already had ripple effects far beyond Europe, influencing global energy prices, food supply chains, and geopolitical rivalries. Every move made in this negotiation will be measured not just in terms of Ukrainian or Russian interests, but in the broader context of an interconnected and fragile global order. In the end, the "No Land for Peace" warning is not merely a political slogan, it is a declaration of principle. The exterior of this situation is marked by the visible damage of war and the international scrutiny of a high-stakes diplomatic engagement. The interior is a determined yet pressured Ukrainian political environment, driven by the urgency of survival. The performance of both leaders is intense, calculated, and aimed at audiences far beyond the negotiating room. The safety features are minimal, resting on thin lines of communication and mutual restraint. The unique selling points of Zelensky's position lie in its moral authority and symbolic strength, while the cost of holding this line is measured in lives, resources, and long-term resilience. As the meeting looms, one thing is clear: its outcome will shape not just the next chapter of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, but also the rules by which future conflicts are judged. The eyes of the world are locked on what happens next, knowing that the decisions made in those discussions could alter the course of history.